All right, call to order the Beverages Licensing Authority hearing for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 at 3 p.m.
Thank you. We'll now do roll call. Member Absalom,
Member Absalom present.
Member Carr,
Member Carr present.
Member Califano,
Member Califano present.
and Member Roberts.
Member Roberts present.
Great. We'll now run through the rules of decorum for public participation in Beverage Licensing Authority. A moment while I share my meeting. Come on. All right. Thank you for joining us today. The city has engaged with the community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and
Did Kristen freeze for everyone?
Yes.
He did. Kristen, you're on mute.
sincere apologies. I don't know what happened. My computer decided to stop on its own. Let me restart that. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision. I'm apologizing. There's some pop-ups going on my computer. I'm going to have to do this from a different way. Is everyone still able to see my screen? I apologize. The city is engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board and commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. More about this vision and the project's community engagement process can be found at the link on your screen. To uphold these guidelines, and other guidelines that support this vision, these will be upheld during the meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited and related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. The Q&A function should only be used for technical questions to staff and should not be used for public comment. Okay. And I apologize for those technical matters. We will begin the agenda with the approval of the Beverage Licensing Authority minutes from the March 20th, 2024 meeting.
Are there any edits from any of the board members to the March meeting minutes? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve? Member Califano would make a motion to approve the minutes as is.
Member Absalom would second.
All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr will abstain since I wasn't present for the whole meeting.
Member Roberts, aye.
Meeting minutes as is approved.
And next we have the approval of Beverage Licensing Authority minutes from the April 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Are there any edits from any of the board members? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve?
Member Carr will make a motion to approve.
Member Absalom would second.
All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, I.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is hearing agendas from the licensing clerk. There are none. So we will move on to agenda item number 2, matters from the Boulder Police Department.
Hi, can you hear me? I am Officer Leah Reck with the City of Boulder Police Department Alcohol Enforcement. And I just have a couple things. One of them to give you an update. So far to date, we've received over 450 fraudulent IDs. However, the bad news is 239 of them were from one establishment, but that's okay. With that said, I started doing some checking around and I'm wondering if I have any interest from the board. I've noticed one of the loopholes with our fraudulent IDs is that the law states that the liquor establishments may seize those fake IDs, but not that they shall. And so a lot of those fake IDs are being returned back to the underage individuals. And some of our establishments aren't as good about catching those fake IDs. And I feel like that's almost setting them up for failure. So I'm doing a little bit of research with some other municipalities to see how they handle those fake IDs and if it's a requirement that they are seized and then turned into the police department. And I wondered what the thoughts were from the board and if you had any interest in pursuing something, tightening up those laws a little bit within our municipality.
This is Chair Califano. I definitely have some strong thoughts on that. But to preface that, can you let us know which establishment has confiscated the most?
The one that confiscated the most is the one that we revoked their license last meeting, and they all got submitted at the same time.
That makes sense. Got it.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I did reach out to CU and they do want to move forward with knowing which of those individuals are students. Even though we don't have the specific dates that they were seized, they are still interested in that. And as I go out and I do more inspections and stuff, I've been meeting with management and a lot of them are unaware that, you know, if they do seize them, that they have to be turned in. So I think that's just an educational piece too. And getting out there and getting my face out there and opening up those lines of communication is really helping.
so going back to the potentially making it mandatory to revoke or seize the fake license. I do have some concerns because I know that some establishments don't do that because of safety concerns for their employees.
That makes sense. And we can also address that, you know, and I can also do a little bit of research on that too, and talk about the safety. Obviously, safety is always going to be first, and we can address that. Maybe once I get out there and I do have more open lines of communication, they will start, you know, seizing those IDs. I've just found that a lot of them are giving them back.
I'm curious as to other board members' thoughts. Mike, I just saw your hand.
Yeah, that was my hand raised. I was just wondering, maybe Chair Califano has some insight towards what's going on with restorative justice program. Is that still in effect?
I believe it is. That is a separate department from mine on campus, but
Okay.
last I heard it still exists and they still pursue situations like this with active students. Mr. Reynolds, I saw your camera turn on. I don't know if you know more about this.
I do, and thank you, Chris Reynolds, Deputy City Attorney at the City Attorney's Office. The CU Restorative Justice Program is still in effect and is going strong.
I feel
So
like
that was kind of one of, yeah, excuse me, sorry to interrupt you there, Member Califano, but that was kind of, I was able to sit on a couple of those meetings with some of the students who were caught with IDs, and I thought that was very effective. kind of a word of mouth way for other students to understand the ramifications of using fake IDs and kind of learning. I learned a lot sitting in a couple of those restorative justice meetings, learning about how people actually attain IDs and those type of things. The other thing that I would want to mention just moving forward is just around training around identifying fake IDs, because I know that John Ballier at some point had a course going on for licensees. I don't know where we stand with the RAR. I guess, Nathan Dewey can speak to that as well, because like you said, Officer Rec, it's just one of those things where if you're not trained properly, right, and pulling an ID, the training should be called the police, right? If you have any question, come and get an officer to come in. I think that's just a clear training I'd like to see coming from anyone as an operator. Hey, I'm not sure if this is right. Let's get someone to come and verify. And that's kind of the only thing I wanted to kind of, because it's hard for anyone as an operator to look at and say, hey, I don't have training. I don't know what a fake ID is supposed to look like. So that's the one thing I think we really want to impress on licensees, just to get the officials involved if there's any question. And that's the one thing I would only suggest we could change, because the law is like, I know the law can be a little bit in between on that. So my suggestion from a safety perspective is getting any sort of police involvement when you have if you're questioning whether or not it's a fake ID or not. That's my only input on it, just from my history in the industry and working in the board.
I also think that some of these establishments don't necessarily have like a manager working. They are the manager, and there's only one individual working, maybe two, and so they don't necessarily feel comfortable confiscating a fake ID for fear of their safety.
And we can also address that as well. Like I said, I feel like the more I'm able to get out there and open up those lines, they need to know that the police are there for them if they do have a question about that. And of course, safety is always going to be first. If they feel it's not worth it, it's definitely not worth it. The other thing that my goal is also to work with CU, and when we have our incoming class of freshmen, to get back out there and kind of have a presentation about the problems with fake IDs and the liabilities and those issues. So hopefully we can educate and maybe nip it, in the very beginning, so that we don't have as many, thinking it's not that big of a deal. So that's my goal. I've got a lot of them, but I just wondered what your input was on that, and I'll continue to do some research. And if I do come up with anything about how other municipalities handle those things, I will definitely share that information with you all.
And I think that's a great idea. Not speaking as a representative of CU, but I can definitely get you some contacts for who to contact for potential fall welcome orientation type of thing.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
And I want to just weigh in briefly. Like, I really like the idea, Officer Rec, of a mandatory confiscation of IDs. I think that would be effective. That's, I'm used to that growing up in New Jersey, and that's kind of what we were used to growing up and going through college. So I'd be interested to explore this further, and I think it could be very effective. Obviously, want to consider safety of the licensees. But I'm even thinking, like, a lot of times there are security and bouncers, and those hot spots in prime times, those folks are typically able to handle situations like that. So I'd be interested in exploring this further.
Are there any other comments for Officer Rect?
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Officer Rex. I'm so impressed by the work you've done since you've taken this role. And not to say that all the officers before you did a great job, because they did, but I'm really noticing it in our community, and I want to say thank you so much. It means a lot to see an officer really caring about what's going on with alcohol service in our community. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and I am really thoroughly enjoying this job. It's after 23 years, it's a position that I'm really enjoying, and I'm loving getting out into the community again.
I echo Member Absalom's thanks for getting out there and actually really enforcing law. All right. Well, thank you so much, Officer Rect.
moving on is matters from the Responsible Association of Retailers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see y'all. And I didn't really have a lot to report on, but now after this topic of fake IDs, I do have a few things to say. So let's just tackle that. Officer Rect, I have not been able to find time to get with you. I think we definitely need to see each other within the next month. I think I can fill in some of the things you were discussing today. And so you and I will cross that bridge when we finally meet. Officer Denig and I used to do a fake ID training, which I've mentioned before, which has been very effective for the members and their staff and management. I can tell you that anybody who's been TIPS trained, at least by myself, or I can pretty much confidently say John Valier, anybody who's received that training from either one of us in the Boulder community has definitely been told that they need to turn in their fake IDs to you. The state has a recommendation of 72 hours. We understand that may not be exactly reasonable with all the, within the industry, but I always tell my folks, try to get it in there within a week or so, just so that Officer Rect now can go ahead and investigate those as soon as possible. So on that side of things, I want you all to know on the BLA, anybody crossing my path is 100% hearing that from me. As far as concerns actually confiscating them and Officer Rec's concern of not receiving those or having some sort of, I don't know, I'm not going to put words in her mouth, having some sort of penalty or some sort of infraction for not turning those in. I think that's a slippery slope. It's a little dangerous because as Councilman or as Member Absalom mentioned, he's spot on. And I think he actually had this discussion before as he used to do what I do. There's a lot of people who get nervous confiscating that ID because of aggression. You will find aggressive folks who will rip the ID out of the hand, who will threaten physical bodily harm. So what I tell the trainees and management and new members is when that kind of situation happens, they are to not take the ID, but if they can, alert the authorities of that sort of aggression. Because obviously we don't want someone getting hurt just because they feel they're going to get in trouble with the police if they don't confiscate a fake ID. And I truly believe that with our cooperation and your all's cooperation and law enforcement, we can all come up with a good plan to maybe alleviate some of that anxiety towards taking an ID, as well as have a better policy for what happens when someone is aggressive and is challenging us for that fake ID. Again, I haven't heard too many cases where people get too aggressive, but I have heard cases where people get aggressive. And that's why that kind of just puts my little red flag up on that. But I truly believe we can find a good solution for that together if we put our heads together. I also am a full proponent of restorative justice. I've been on a few cases in Fort Collins with CSU. I was on one case with CU years ago. And I also see the benefits of that, especially if it's a first-time offender. So I would say that's something we should all kind of think about as a possibility for these students who really don't realize, A, it's a felony a lot of times, the IDs they're using. If not, it's a serious misdemeanor. And to educate them on not only the effect it has on them, but the business, the community at large, everything like that. I think that is a very wise thing to do. So I will be reaching out to you in the next week, Officer Rex, so you and I can formally meet. I would love to reintroduce the fake ID trainings, which we're just about due for one now. We try to do twice a year. So we're just due for those now. And I think maybe right before summer would be a good time to hit those up as well. Other than that, I'm always here as a resource. I've been doing this 9 going on 10 years now. So I'm more than happy to help answer questions from what experiences I've had with that. As far as overall RER in Boulder, things are just going great. We got another new member, Chicken on the Hill. So they contacted me, and Jared, Lou, and I have been in constant contact. Unfortunately, I've not been able to make it there due to family illness, and myself, I had an illness. But we are scheduled to meet next week, and I'm going to give him all the materials, and I'm going to scope his establishment, and we're going to come up with some action plans for responsibility in the future moving forward. So we're happy to have them, and we have a couple other members on the wings. And that's all I have for today, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dewey. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Dewey? I just had one quick one. Can you tell me when Chicken on the Hill decided to become a member?
I'd have to, Matt, I'd have to look back at that, but it's been in the past month, probably within the past month.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. If there's no questions, well, thank you, Mr. Dewey, for all that you do.
Right, continuing on in our agenda is agenda item number 4, general public comments for future beverage licensing authority hearings. If you are here in order to make public comment, please utilize the raise hand feature. I currently do not see anyone utilizing a phone to call in. So Chair Califano, we do have one raised hand. I will unmute.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Spalding, and I'm here representing the University Hill Neighborhood Association. The University Hill Neighborhood Association, or UNA, thanks you for revoking Taco Junkie's liquor license on April 3rd, 2024. Our University Hill neighbors were concerned when they saw the emergency closure notice on Taco Junkie's door. A member of the UNA Executive Committee attended the special hearing to report back to the group. UNA wants to prevent the return of the chaotic and dangerous bar scene during the early 2000s from ever happening again, especially since the city ended the 2013 prohibition on 2 a.m. closings for new licenses. The neighborhood suffered from the spillover of the out-of-control bar scene of that earlier period. But more importantly, the residents were disturbed by the health and safety dangers it presented to very young and vulnerable students. Underage service and overservice resulted in fights, sexual assaults, alcohol poisoning, permanent damage to students' health and academic success. We are fortunate to have BLA members who put health and safety above a business's financial gains. With the opening of the new Moxie Hill Hotel very soon and the CU Hotel and Conference Center next year, the Hill Business District has the opportunity to become a thriving commercial district. We hope that you, Officer Rec, the City Attorney's Office, and the licensing staff will continue to be vigilant about alcohol service in the bars on the Hill. Thank you again for handling Taco Junkie in a way that not only protects our students, but also ensures a record will follow the owners if they apply for a liquor license elsewhere. And that's Nancy Blackwood, Elise Longbottom, Valerie Stoiva, Stephen Clark, Josna Raj, Evan Thomas, Mary Cooper Ellis, Elise, myself, and Scott Thomas as members of the committee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that input, Ms. Spalding.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for general public comment? I'm not seeing anyone, Chair Califano.
Great. I think we can move on to the next agenda item then.
Agenda item number 5, Penco Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill, 1119 13th Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302. Monthly status report to the Beverage Licensing Authority. Staff can report that they are in good standing with sales and occupation tax at this time.
Great. Mr. Liu, I believe you're here if you're able to turn your camera on.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yeah, so you are paid in full, so you're good to go. Thank you so much for being timely with that payment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, continuing on. is agenda item number 6, International Order of Odd Fellows, Lodge number 9, as the nonprofit applicant for an event titled World's Shortest St. Patrick's Day Parade at 1/2 block of 16th Street and Pearl Streets, Boulder, Colorado, 80302. Follow up on the event status from Sunday, March 17th, 2024. I was given information after the meeting started that Mr. Weekly is here on behalf of the International Order of Odd Fellows.
I'm here.
Mr. Weekly, are you able to turn your camera on?
It says the host has stopped it.
We aren't, let me,
There we go. Thank you.
mhm.
Hi, everybody. Ted Biderman is on an airplane, so on his way to Paris, and so I had agreed to do this solo. I was with Ted when we had our first meeting. So the event we felt went well. It was a great parade. Having it on Pearl Street seemed to turn out the crowds a lot more. We felt that the beer garden went well. Certainly, there's things that we can learn and we think we can do better. And we're, looking forward to some additional comments that Kristen, you might have. So I think, we saved all the documents. We saved everything that we had done. So we'll be more prepared for next year. Looking forward to that. And, I sort of asked Kristen, what would you have us do differently? And it's, well, start in October. Not in January. And so we're certainly aware of that and a lot more of the help it gives this organization or this board to have the information sooner so that the packages were complete. Obviously, we didn't have a full complete package to you when we met. The art cups were great. The CD paid for those, so we're very happy for that. And I think we successfully got back 99% of them. I don't know if somebody saved one for a souvenir or not, but we worked very hard to have the art cup receptacles there. We used 16 ounces because that's what they gave us, but we're pouring 12-ounce beer, so we'd like to just use 12-ounce cups next time. I think that would be better. We're not aware of anybody that was served that was at least appeared impaired. We had a lot of tips certified folks there. We had a lot of just members who are marshals with orange vests, and this was just a half block space. So it was very easy to view everybody and see who was there and what they were doing. And we didn't see that. We did reject, I think, 2 folks who wanted to come in and said that they left their license in the car or in their other jeans, didn't have those. I don't know if those were test cases or real, but we, turned them around. There was also one person where there's a group that tried to come in with their own cups, and I think we're probably drinking alcohol that we didn't let in. So I think we did a good job with that. Again, it was a pretty contained area, so we were able to see really on both ends. I was able to get back and forth between them. So, we're not aware of anyone that was underage. We think that it really worked well. We think we had good trained folks that were doing the ID checking, giving out the wristbands, making sure that you had drink tickets, and the attendees were older anyway. I just, I don't know that there were really, other than young children, kind of college age who might kind of be in that 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old cohort as well. We had hoped to make a profit for our education sponsorships, and we did. So we were happy about that. We made about $1,500 on net. We think that we can do more for that because that was our objective. Now we own a 20 by 20 tent, so we only bought one, and now we know how to set it up. And so we won't have that expense and some other things. So overall, we felt it went well. Again, we really appreciated the help that Kristen gave us, working with the tips teams, making sure they understood what was happening, making sure we realized
what we needed to do. So we appreciated the patience and the guidance, but overall, we think the event went as well as we could have hoped for. And again, are looking forward because it was such a great event overall for the community. We got a lot of great feedback for having that. The weather cooperated pretty well, although it snowed, it seemed like 2 feet 4 days before the event, but we were able to get that all cleared out. So that went well too. So that's what I've got to report. I'm happy to give any more specifics and respond to any additional feedback that you or Kristen might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Weekly. Appreciate that. And it sounds like it went well. I don't think there were many bumps. Are there any questions from any of the board members for Mr. Weekly?
I guess I would only say if Ms. Teague would like to say anything about, what went down there. I do agree with an earlier application would help everyone with information and full, full disclosure on how everything's going. But other than that, unless Ms. Teague has anything else, I was very happy to hear that it went off without a hitch, and a good thing for our community. So thank you.
I can let you know that the event for the inspection that I did and for the portion of the event while I was there went very well. There were just some little minor adjustments that needed to be made, nothing that was insurmountable at all. They were very responsive, very receptive. They did have extremely great staff that was TIPS trained from local establishments here within the city. And overall, it went very, very well.
Thank you. All right, I know you've got a full agenda, so thank you very much, and we look forward to hopefully not seeing this group again if we can pull that up, but we appreciate all of your help.
Thank you so much, Mr. Weekly.
Thank you.
Continuing on to agenda item number 7, show cause hearing concerning an alleged violation and whether the retail liquor store type liquor license held by EPG Enterprises Incorporated doing business as Baseline Liquor, 2750 Baseline Road, Boulder, Colorado, 80305 should be suspended or revoked. If you are here for this item, would you please identify yourself?
Edward Gonzalez.
Mr. Gonzalez, can you enable your video, please?
Sec. That work? Sorry, I'm not very. Just
That looks to be good.
thank you.
And good afternoon, members of the board. Again, Chris Reynolds with the Boulder City Attorney's Office. And I'm just here to move to admit the stipulation when the time is appropriate.
Thank you. If we could, Kristen, just get him sworn in real quick.
Certainly. Mr. Gonzalez, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Edward Gonzalez,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that the testimony I am about to give,
testimony I'm about to give
the Beverage Licensing Authority
Beverage licensing authority.
is true and correct.
It's true and correct.
Okay, will there be anyone else that that will be presenting information on your behalf that I need to swear in, Mr. Gonzalez?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Kristen, do we need address and spelling of name or anything?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I've been doing CLAB for so long, we don't do that. Mr. Gonzalez, may I please have your spelling of your last name and your address, please?
Gonzalez, Edward, Gonzales. My home address and business address is 290 North 10th Avenue, Colorado, 8060.
Great, thank you for that. And Mr. Gonzalez, I don't believe you're represented by counsel, is that correct?
I'm not.
Great, since you're not represented by counsel, I'm going to go ahead and read the proceedings into the record. Give me one. All right. This is a public hearing before the Beverage Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder to determine whether or not the license of EPG Enterprises doing business as Baseline Liquor with a retail license shall be suspended or revoked on the basis of the violations in the order to show cause served upon the licensee and requiring the licensee's presence here today. Because this is a disciplinary proceeding, the authority shall not ask for or allow comment from members of the general public on the guilt of the licensee of the appropriate, sorry, just lost my place, appropriate discipline to be imposed. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony presented by the city and the licensee in order to enable the authority to make the findings and to determine by a preponderance of evidence whether or not the licensee has violated the various laws alleged in the course of the hearing. Testimony or other evidence establishes the guilt of the licensee of violation of some other law, rule, or regulation than those stated in the notice. The licensee shall be afforded a reasonable continuance upon any offer that evidence in defense, explanation, and mitigation is not then available to the licensee, but can be obtained within the period of a continuance not to exceed 10 days. A record is being made of these proceedings. All testimony shall be given under oath. The rules of evidence and requirement and proof of procedure shall confirm to the extent practicable to those in non-civil or civil non-jury cases, but when necessary to ascertain facts affecting the substantial rights of the public or of the licensee. The authority may receive and consider evidence not admissible under such rules if such evidence poses probative value commonly accepted by reasonable and prudent persons in the conduct of their affairs. The rules of privilege required by law shall be respected in this proceeding, and the chair may exclude incompetent and unduly repetitious evidence. The chair shall rule upon questions of evidence and procedure, subject to being overruled on motion sustained by a majority vote of those members of the authority present. Should a licensee wish to request a fine in lieu of active suspension days, they should notify the authority of this after penalty is determined, if any, but before suspension posting is discussed, and the licensee should be prepared to supply an estimated per day suspension dollar amount for the authority's deliberations. Those who desire to be heard shall identify themselves by stating the name, spelling their last name, and stating the pertinent address, and they shall be sworn in by the board secretary. Is there any conflict of interest or ex parte communication from any of the board members? Member Califano, no.
Member Absalom, no.
Member Carr, no.
Member Roberts, no.
Great, and I believe we do have a stipulation of facts.
And that is accurate. The stipulation, we do have a stipulation in this case. It's contained on page 38 of the agenda packet. And we were able to enter a stipulation with the licensee to the actual violation. And at this time, I would move the board to accept the stipulation.
Great, thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Is there a motion to accept the stipulation?
Member Carr will make a motion to accept the stipulation.
Member Absalom will second the motion to accept the stipulation of facts.
Great. All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom,
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
All right, Mr. Gonzalez, if you would like to proceed and explain what happened here.
My employee and was working that night. He was alone. Pretty busy night. At the time of the incident, he had a young woman that and was told us she was moving and asked if this week. Kevin, my employee, asked her to wait while he took care of this other customer. In his rush, Kevin has always been a very good employee. He asked to see an ID. He was presented a Colorado vertical ID, and in his rush, he did two things wrong. One, he miscalculated the person's age. Two, he failed to follow a store policy to scan that ID and do an electronic age verification. There's no way I can make excuses for it. It was an error. You know, the only thing I would say is we're dealing with human beings and they will make errors. He stressed to all of our employees the importance of verifying and checking every single ID. We've recently started, since this happened, I've informed all of my employees we will no longer accept Colorado vertical IDs, even though there's been a recent change to allow it. This gets too confusing, and you know, at a busy time for someone to try and make that calculation, I prefer just to wait and an adult ID. You know, and since I've owned the store now for 4 years, I submitted documentation showing that past 2 years we've been checked 6 times by the Boulder and by the state of Colorado. We've passed all of those compliance checks. And we do that, I feel, because we take it very seriously, and you know, putting alcohol in the hands of a minor is a big deal. Again, you know, we're dealing with human beings and human-made error. He's a very good employee. I've been working with RAR to get, haven't gone through some retraining just to refreshing his head again. So not just saying, you know, that happened, too bad, we do the best we can. We're doing everything we can to correct it to ensure it doesn't again. Based on liquors, you know, since we've been there, we've tried to become part of the community. We have, you know, we've committed resources and we've sponsored the Boulder Collegiate Baseball Program. Last year, we sponsored the KGNU Bluegrass Festival. This year, we recently sponsored the CU Graduate Engineering Research and Recruitment Center. We do that because the community's been good to us, and we want to try and give back to the community. Also recently been approached by Martin Acres Homeowners Association to sponsor their Neighborhood Connection event. Agreed to do that. So, again, all I'm saying is we're doing everything we can to be a responsible retailer. We do not take this responsibility lightly. It is important to us. Like I said, I'm sorry it happened.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Are there any questions from the board members for Mr. Gonzalez?
I just have to be honest, you were kind of breaking up for a bit of that. I don't know if any other of the board members were experiencing that same problem. I did kind of catch the gist of some of the things that were said. I guess my question is around kind of alcohol policy and then some of the tips training I'm seeing in our packet here. You say that everyone's trained, and then I'm seeing some cards that aren't up to date. Is there am I missing an alcohol policy in here of any sort?
No, there's an additional email notification or email response I received from Nathan. Some training that occurred back in October of last year. Apparently, they're having some problems getting those certificates printed and out. And I just included an acknowledgement from Nathan that they're working on that problem, and that's why those cards aren't up to date.
So as an
People have to get
operator,
trained.
yeah, I would just I think that the entire Tips Corporation has moved to a digital component without them actually being printed, and they're actually emailing Tips cards to operators at this point. So I would suggest you look into that in terms of how and I'm sure Mr. Dewey can help you with that. I don't have any other questions. I mean, it was kind of hard to hear some of the things I do see in the packet. You've passed other compliance checks in the past. I don't have any other questions.
My only question is, what do you have a written alcohol service policy?
Yes, all of our employees have been trained at the ID under 50. There's even a question, check everybody's ID. Actually, it's the older ones, but the younger ones that give us trouble about asking for an ID. The older folks could care less. So they're trained and they know to verify every ID. They're trained and they know to scan that ID in electronic verification. That way we get the electronic verification that it is a valid ID, and we have a record that ID was checked. We have posted on the front door that if you're under 21, unless you're in the of a guardian, you're not allowed in the store. So, on a regular basis, we deny service to people that came in, and maybe one of them is 21, and the other doesn't have an ID or can't show an ID or is underage, and we'll deny service. So I think we're doing as much as we can. Unfortunately, I think everybody in retail is experiencing it's difficult to get and retain staff. Kevin is an exception. Kevin's been with us now. So it's just a difficulty we face.
I guess going back to my original question, do you have a written policy that employees need to sign, read, or anything upon hire as to how to properly manage the sale of alcohol in your establishment?
Not written, no. Other than requiring them to go to attend tips training, constantly talking to them and posting notices out at every register. You're scanning IDs when you're doing this. They also have access to mine and my daughter's phone to call us at any time. As far as a policy they have to sign, and that I'm looking at how to get that done.
Yeah, I definitely think that's necessary and you need to have that down. Nathan Dewey with RAR can help you with that too.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Not seeing any. All right, Mr. Gonzalez, is there anything else you wanted to present to us?
No, again, other than to stress, in 4 years I've owned the store, we've never had a violation. That's checked. We're doing as best we can. I'm still frankly new to the business, so I'm learning as we go. This written alcohol policy that I definitely need to add and will add.
Great, thank you.
That's all.
At this point, we will close for deliberation. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to have some discussion. I think there's, I, there's a lot of holes for me. I'm seeing a lot of lack of responsibility to the community. If we're not even, if there's not even a written policy. I definitely, I want to hear what other people have to say too. Yes, I want to have a discussion.
Yeah, so member Roberts, what looking at when you look at the penalty schedule here, you're looking at aggravating factors. To me, I'm seeing immediately a lack of effective operational / training programs in place. And then I'm also seeing a failure to submit much mitigation factor in the last 9 days before the hearing. I'm not seeing that. And those are two aggravating factors that are kind of glaring to me when it comes to this particular case. Just going off of our penalty schedule, that's what I'm seeing. And when I'm looking at mitigation, I can see some things here in terms of community involvement, but in terms of measuring those, there's more aggravation than mitigation, in my opinion, in this particular case.
Member Califano would concur with Member Absalom's findings. I don't think it's tipping the scale to an extreme degree. I think there are some aggravating factors, such as it's a big aggravating factor that there's not a written policy, but they have passed several checks before, so it sounds like they are making an attempt. They do have some community involvement, but again, there are those aggravating factors of not taking on the responsible sale of alcohol. So I'm kind of torn. I'd be wondered if anyone else has any idea on a determination for sentencing.
The other thing I noticed that Mr. Gonzalez mentioned is that they do have a requirement to scan IDs with the sound like cash registers, but that just wasn't followed. So I would consider that a mitigating factor also based on our schedule here. I'm also not sure when Mr. Gonzalez submitted that letter to the BLA. That could have been previous to 9 days. The letter that's included in our packet where he talks about community involvement. But I also concur with the rest of the, the authority here that I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is that there is no written alcohol policy. And, on one hand, I really like to see that they've passed the programs, but on the other hand, it's concerning to me that there isn't a, there just isn't something in place that's in writing. So, yeah, that's my perspective.
They also are a member of RAR, which is
That's true.
a mitigating factor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do like to see the community involvement. I think that's also important.
So we're looking at, oh, go ahead.
The community involvement is important, but it's also important that when you have the responsibility of serving alcohol, that you're not serving to our children in our community. So I see this as a pretty big offense to a sale of a minor.
So we're looking at table value of 3 days served and 6 held in abeyance. Does anyone have any basis to go off of those?
I would say based on the discussion, excuse me, this member Absalom, based on the discussion, I'm kind of feeling both sides of this, member Roberts and member Carr going for mitigation and aggravation. Given the fact that this is something that we've seen this licensee pass in the has passed these sort of compliance checks, I'd be willing to stick with a table value in terms of days served, but maybe up the days in abeyance, and take that up to maybe 12 days in abeyance to make sure that if something does happen again, we can understand the gravity of what's going on here and serving the young people in my community. So I would make a motion for 3 days served and 12 days in abeyance.
I would I would say given that they've passed so many self-checks in the past, I do want to recognize that, and I would like to give them 2 days served. And I agree with holding more days in abeyance. I truly, it sounds to me like this is a situation which is, they weren't following procedure. But I think that they have a track record of following procedure in the past. And so I feel like there is enough there for me to feel like we could decrease their days served by 1 in recognition of that. How do y'all feel about that?
We have a motion on the table. Are there any other seconds to Member Absalom's? Member Califano would second Member Absalom's motion, just being that I feel like the aggravating factors and the mitigating factors kind of balance themselves out. And so at that point, I would default to table value as well. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
All right. So traditionally, we have these begin on the following Monday. Kristen, is your office able to get the postings out by Monday?
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Gonzalez. So we are suspending your liquor license for 3 days, beginning on Monday. That is April. Gosh,
That would be Monday, April 22nd.
thank you. And then you do have 12 days held in abeyance. So should you get another violation within the next year, you will have to serve those 12 days in addition to any additional suspension we may grant.
Good.
And then you'll need to pick up those postings from Kristen Teague's office, and those, I believe, instructions will be given on how to display those.
Correct.
Very well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing on is agenda item number 8. Show cause hearing concerning an alleged violation and whether the retail liquor store type liquor license. Apologies, there is a typo in that. Penco Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill does not hold a retail liquor license. They hold a hotel restaurant liquor license. So the show cause hearing concerning an alleged violation and whether the hotel restaurant type liquor license held by Penco Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill, 1119 13th Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302 should be suspended or revoked.
If we could just get Mr. Liu sworn in.
Absolutely. Mr. Liu, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me?
Yes, ma'am.
I state your
I-
name,
Don't do.
do solemnly swear or affirm
To assume. To swear. Affirm.
that the testimony I am about to give
That the testimony I'm about to give
before the Beverage Licensing Authority
before the Beverage Licensing Authority
is true and correct.
is true and correct.
Thank you. And can you please spell your name
DUONG. Last name Liu. LU.
and give your address for the record?
1119 13th Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Liu, since you're not represented by counsel today, I will go ahead and read the proceedings into the record.
Yes, sir.
1 second here. This is a public hearing before the Beverage Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder to determine whether or not the license of Panko Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill with a hotel restaurant license shall be suspended or revoked on the basis of the violations alleged in the order to show cause served upon the license and requiring the licensee's presence here today. Because this is a disciplinary proceeding, the authority shall not ask for or allow comment from members of the general public on the guilt of the licensee or the appropriate discipline to be imposed. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony presented by the city and by the licensee in order to enable this authority to make findings and to determine by a preponderance of the evidence whether or not the licensee has violated the various laws as alleged. If in the course of the hearing, testimony or other evidence establishes the guilt of the licensee of a violation of some other law, rule, or regulation than those stated in the notice, the licensee shall be afforded a reasonable continuance upon any offer that evidence in defense, explanation, and mitigation is not then available to the licensee, but can be obtained within the period of a continuance not to exceed 10 days. A record is being made of these proceedings. All testimony shall be given under oath. The rules of evidence and requirement of proof and procedure shall confirm to the extent practicable to those in civil non-jury cases, but when necessary to ascertain facts affecting the substantial rights of the public or of the licensee. The authority may receive and consider evidence not admissible under such rules if such conduct of their affairs. The rules of privilege required by law shall be respected in this proceeding, and the chair may exclude incompetent and unduly repetitious evidence. The chair shall rule upon the questions of evidence and procedure, subject to being overruled on motion sustained by a majority vote of those members of the authority present. Should a licensee wish to request a fine in lieu of active suspension days, they should notify the authority of this after a penalty is determined, if any, but before suspension posting is discussed, and the licensee should be prepared to supply an estimated per day suspension dollar amount of the authority's deliberations. Those who desire to be heard shall identify themselves by stating their name, spelling their name, and stating their pertinent address. They shall also be sworn in by the board secretary. Is there any conflict of interest or ex parte communication from any of the board members? Member Califano, no.
Member Absalom, no.
Member Carr, no.
Member Roberts, no.
Great. And I believe we do have a stipulation of facts, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, and hello again. We have reached a stipulation of facts to the violation. It's contained on page 59 of the packet, and at this time I would move the board to accept the stipulation of facts.
Great. Is there a motion to accept the stipulation of facts?
Member Absalom, make a motion to accept the stipulation of facts.
Member Califano would second that motion. All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
All right, stipulation of facts accepted. Mr. Liu, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir, I am.
Great, please proceed.
Just want to start up apologizing for what had happened. Regarding that day, I had stepped out about 30 minutes prior to the incident due to family emergency. My 1-year-old had a very serious allergic reaction, so I had to meet my wife at the hospital. Right before I had left, I had asked our employee Kat to please double check IDs if a customer wanted to buy alcohol. For the meantime, I would be back as quickly as I could. He got promoted to bar area January 31st, which is why he hadn't completed his training yet. Prior to this, he's been in the kitchen, a very reliable staff member of ours. He shows up on time. He's the last one to leave with me. I value that a lot considering how hard it is to find staff nowadays. I've increased our starting wage at $18 an hour for months now just to find a very reliable staff member. It's been super hard. Most of them either show up late, try to steal from us, or try to drink on the job, which we do not tolerate at all. I take full responsibility for what he had did. As you all have heard, I am a member of Mr. Dewey's Responsible Association retailer. He'll be coming by to be training not only Cam, but every server we will ever have to ensure this will never happen again. I have also put stickers on all the POS systems, reminding them to check IDs prior to processing an order. We're also exploring into an ID scanner for the near future. I've also been at the restaurant around 14 hours a day during the weekends to ensure every single ID is checked at the front of the door and at the bar. I'm not only doing this because of the violation. The reason is I want to ensure that we uphold all the laws and regulations within the city of Boulder and the state of Colorado. We have turned down numerous fake IDs, underage IDs, every single weekend, every single day. As you may know, we got into some trouble earlier this year. We had to pay a very large sum of money. Still trying to recoup that. So if I may ask for the city council member to please consider letting me serve our suspension or whatever you guys see fit in May. The reason why I'm asking is so I can continue running our business and not lose money during these last few busy weeks for us. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the board members for Mr. Liu?
I have one, Mr. Liu. Is there a reason that you have not submitted anything into this packet in terms of training, tips training, any sort of policies? When you received this letter from the city in terms of, and you agreed to the stipulation of the facts, did you read some of the notifications about presenting some evidence to prove that you are training and you do have policies in place?
I apologize for that. I was not aware to be submitting that. What I remember was we were submitting for our renewal of liquor license, and I did put it in there, but unfortunately I was not aware of that.
So if you read the notification you received from the city in regards to your violation, it lists everything you needed to provide for this agenda item, and none of them provided.
I do apologize for that.
I don't have any other questions.
Is it okay if I may send it in right now? I do have all of their certificates.
How does the board feel considering that?
I don't know that that would sway me heavily at this point in the hearing. I am glad to know that you have it. I would have liked to see more mitigating factors in your packet. I do appreciate your words. It sounds like you took some time to think about what you were saying to us, and I do appreciate that. But so yeah.
I had a follow-up question. Mr. Liu, do you have a written alcohol policy? And has this employee had their tips training at this point, or are they scheduled for it?
I do not have a written policy for the employees, but I will be ASAP. And the employee is certified.
They are certified. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so all the employees now are certified?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I had a question, but I think it may be more for the chair or Ms. Teague about these two agenda items kind of going back and forth in terms of the violation and then the renewal. Some of the information that Mr. Liu is providing us from his renewal process. When I'm looking at the violation, I feel like I should be only looking at what was presented in the packet for the violation. That's correct, right? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's clear before I have any further questions, which I do not have any other questions.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think I have any further questions. Does anyone else?
No.
All right, Mr. Liu, is there any, Mike, did you have something else? Member Carr?
No.
All right, Mr. Liu, did you have anything else you wanted to present to us?
No, sir, not at this time.
Great. At this time, we will close for deliberation. assuming discussion. I definitely see a lot of aggravating factors.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about this. And there's a few things that really concern me. One which is, you know, not having any alcohol policy, just allowing somebody else to man a register and sell alcohol while um, you know that it's not tips trained. It even if it's an emergency, to me that seems like, you know, hey, we're not serving any alcohol for the rest of the day until I can return to the store. Like hands down, like there should not be anyone serving alcohol who's not tips trained. So that really concerns me. Um, you know, I understand it was an emergency, and then also just I'm seeing a little bit of a pattern here, where there was a previous issue, where I believe that was failure to comply with the license condition of paying tax. I think it was for 9 days. It was 9 days late, and then also there was this letter that was submitted to the licensee, right, which says what they're supposed to do, and it doesn't seem like that was written or you know, paid attention to also. So I just have a lot of concerns about this one.
This is Member Absalom, just going off of Member Carr's concerns and going back to our penalty schedule and the table of aggravating factors. I'm looking at, you know, not multiple police contacts, but of course the previous incident, which was a pretty large police contact. Other pertinent facts are I'm seeing a litany of these in terms of training, you know, and I respect the fact that there are emergencies. And I respect you, Mr. Liu, for understanding that, for going to take care of your family. There's no question there. But for me, there's just a lot of aggravation, and again, zero mitigation presented to us in the packet. So I I'm looking at terms of table values here. I'm seeing conduct of establishment and sale to a minor coming together in a way that, when we looked at the last issue with the police, that falls under conduct of establishment to me and does fall under other pertinent facts in this particular case. I would make a motion, and I don't know, again, I would ask how this moves into our renewal on the next agenda item. So in terms of this particular case, I would make a motion to take the 5 days served on top of 8 days for conduct for 13 days served, and a total of 15 in abeyance would be my motion to start. But that's, again, I'll have the rest of the board kind of come and look at what I'm looking at in terms of the violation. And we are here for sale to a minor. Conduct of establishment is just something that's falling very much in my purview as I'm looking at this particular packet.
Well, conduct of establishment still falls on within a year. So I agree with you on that. Another aggravating factor to me is that they joined RAR subsequent to the violation. So they weren't a part of it before finding out that they've got this violation. And another aggravating factor is that while we did make it a requirement for them to report to us for 6 months, I believe that was what we required. You know, they've been before us in addition to that several times within the last, I want to say 8 or 9 months. And it's, you know, these are, we're doing this as community members. We're not compensated for being here. And I feel like that is a bit of kind of a waste of our time. And it's something so simple that other establishments are following, and it's a requirement of establishments. So for me, that is another aggravating factor. I would, just to round it out, I would be willing to up this, keep the days in abeyance, but up potentially the days to 14. I don't know how the rest of the group feels about that.
So is it 14 days served and 15 days in advance? Do I understand that correctly?
That's what I would do, yes. That would be my motion.
So Chair Califano is essentially amending my motion to take it to 14 days served with 15 days in abeyance.
That is correct.
Member Absalom would second that motion. I would also, maybe if Member Carr would like to weigh in, but I would second that motion.
I'm in favor. Member Carr's in favor.
Any other discussion, Member Roberts?
No, I think we're all on the same page here.
All right, so all in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
All right, now we need to discuss days served. Personally, I am not willing to entertain the idea of moving it to May. There's no mitigating factors submitted that would motivate me to do that.
I agree with Chair Califano. We need to stick with our rules of procedure here. I don't see any extenuating factors that would make us change our rules around this, unfortunately.
I agree.
Same.
All right, so standard, we would start this on Monday. Kristen, your office can have those postings ready.
That is correct, with a start date of Monday, April 22nd.
And just for clarification, Mr. Lee, you can remain open. You can still serve food. It's just the service of alcohol that's been suspended for the 14 days.
Thank you, sir. I was just gonna ask that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lee. You'll need to pick up your hearing materials from, posting materials, excuse me, from Kristen's office, and have them posted by Monday.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Continuing on in the agenda is agenda item number 9. Public hearing and consideration of an application filed on February 14th, 2024 from Penco Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill, 1119 13th Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302, Dong Phi Lu, owner and registered manager, with a premises business mailing address for the renewal of a hotel restaurant type liquor license. Would you like me to re-swear him in or remind him that he is still under oath?
I believe we can leave it that he is still under oath, but I would defer to Roberto about that.
Sir, you are still under oath. Do you have any questions about that?
Okay.
All right.
Great. And since you are not represented by counsel, I'm going to go ahead and read the proceedings into the record. This is a public hearing before the Beverages Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder to determine whether or not the applicant of Panko Corporation doing business as Chicken on the Hill for renewal of a hotel restaurant type liquor license shall be granted or denied. This hearing is conducted pursuant to the laws of the state of Colorado and the rules of the Beverage Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder. The purpose of this hearing is to receive information, data, and testimony by interested parties in order to enable this authority to make findings and to reach the conclusions required to be made by state law as to whether or not the license shall be renewed. Interested parties are the applicant, residents of the neighborhood affected by the license as previously determined by the authority, and the owners and managers of business located within the neighborhood. This hearing shall be limited to questions of whether or not there is good cause not to renew the license as set forth in the notice of hearing dated April 17, 2024. A record is being made of these proceedings. Those who desire to be heard shall identify themselves by stating their name, spelling their last name, and stating the pertinent address. They shall also be sworn in by the board secretary. Is there any conflict of interest or ex parte communications from any of the board members? Member Califano, no.
Member Absalom, no.
Member Carr, no.
Member Roberts, no.
Great. And is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak to this agenda item? If you could please raise your hand. I am not seeing any. All right, Mr. Liu, if you would like to proceed.
One moment, I just do need to confirm the swearing in for a renewal is a little bit different than a show cause. So you're still under that oath as previously noted, Mr. Liu, but can you also confirm that the posting for the required 10 days was done?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Liu, you're here before us for renewal of your license.
Yes, sir.
We set this for the record, as a non-administrative renewal, given your previous violations with sales tax. If you could please give us some insight as to any procedural methods you plan to utilize to prevent this from the future, and give us good reason why we should renew your license.
Yes, sir. So apologize for not being on time those times, but I've made the effort to be early than on time. I also am working with a company who connects with Clover regarding sales tax. They're going to be pulling the money every single day. And then on the day of payment, they will be submitting the payment themselves, making sure we're on time, making sure we are in good standing at all time. I can look up the company's name if you guys would like. Don't have it on top of my head. I'm sorry about that.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to present for that?
Also, yeah, I'm just trying to tell you guys we're a small business guy, and this has always been my dream, and love to continue being in Boulder, Colorado, serving. And just want to let you guys know I will be putting 100% force on this, and will never happen again.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board members? I just had one quick question, probably for Roberto. Given that this agenda item came before us before we made a determination on the previous violation, are we able to consider that violation at this point in time?
Yeah, you can certainly consider any factors which weigh for or against the reasons to either make a motion to grant or deny the request for this license. So anything that you find not only reasonable, but that weighs in favor of or against.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for Mr. Liu from the board? Not seeing any. All right, Mr. Liu, is there anything you'd like to close with before we close for deliberation?
Yeah, so that company name is Davo. So it uses sales data from Clover to automatically set aside sales tax fund for each day. When it comes time to remit the funds to the state, Davo automatically files and pays the sales tax in full and on time.
Great, thank you.
So,
all right, at this time we will close for deliberation. Discussion.
This is Member Absalom speaking. I'm just looking here at the BLA rules of procedure. I'm looking at subsection 819 grounds for non-renewal. Under the section C, it says evidence that the licensed premises have not been operated in a manner that adversely affects the public health, welfare, or safety of the immediate neighborhood in which the establishment is located, including continuing pattern of fights, violent activity, or disorderly conduct. I'm not seeing a pattern of those things, but just after reading through these rules, and given the conduct of the establishment here, I would like to hear what the other authority members have to say about this, but this is a difficult one for me. I understand being a small business. I understand the difficulties with understanding a lot of the administrative components of running a small business. I understand that thoroughly, but this is a little bit of a tough one for me, given the community this establishment is in.
Yeah, I had similar concerns and considerations. I think if we're going to renew this license, there have to be some pretty strict stipulations, some things we're going to want to see from the licensee going forward. And I'm wondering if we can even conditionally approve this, with a even for a shorter period of time or something of that nature, because I want to ensure that after the licensee has served their suspension and has provided us with materials that are required, like they're still in compliance. What would the rest of the board feel about that?
I'm kind of in agreement with you, Member Carr, in that we would definitely have to put some conditions on, and we can put many conditions on. One of which I would be pretty strict with and say, should they receive a violation? And Roberto, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm unable to put this condition on, but I would say anywhere from if they receive a violation within the next 3 to 6 months, I'm open to the board's decision on that. And that violation doesn't have to be service to a minor. That can be within the conditions set forth on the licensee. So should they not pay their sales tax on time, that would be considered. And if I'm able to, I would say revocation of the license, should that happen within the next 3 to 6 months.
So those issues are covered in your rules of procedure, section 6-4. And if the applicant, the licensee now and applicant agrees, because he does want the renewal, the authority may impose conditions of approval of this license or the renewal. And basically, whatever it is that the authority and the licensee agree on, provided that the authority independently concurs with the conditions. So, for example, if there are some conditions, it really does have to be agreed upon by both. So if the licensee, if you put out, as you're discussing with the licensee, and the licensee isn't on board with one, that means that that one will not be in effect. Knowing that it would be a condition and knowing that you will vote on whether or not it's going to be granted. Now, the authority may, separate from the agreed upon conditions, direct at any time that any licensee renewal be changed to non-approval, which that really isn't the question here. But you can at least discuss with him some of the things that you're considering if in fact you want to vote in favor of allowing him. So if you want to deliberate on what each one of you or collectively what you would like to see, if you're going to vote for renewal, and then talk to Mr. Liu to see if he is in agreement with that.
How does the rest of the board feel about these conditions? And I'm open to suggestions or altercations thereof of my suggestion.
Chair Califano, I think that it's a really strong condition to say that if there are any violations that we would revoke their license. And I would say within the next 6 months, given the history of this licensee.
So do the conditions then change after that 6 months? Like that condition is dropped? Is that how that?
If we set forth that condition, yes, and we put the time period of 6 months on it.
Would the condition also include monthly reporting to the authority?
I would like to see that.
So, yeah, I would make a motion, or I would make a second to the motion that any violation of the Colorado State Liquor Code or the BLA rules of procedure by Chicken on the Hill within the next 6 months would be a revocation of their license, and that we would also like to see Mr. Liu and Chicken on the Hill monthly with reports on tips training, alcohol policies, and sales tax.
I think sorry, Mike, but I think that might have to be a first because you added some conditions to
Added
it.
too much. Okay, yeah. So
could we add something to that just to continue the discussion for another moment? I'd also like to I would like to see that alcohol training policy by our next meeting. I think that is critical, as well as those tip training materials.
So we need a brand new motion with all these conditions. Got it. I can do that. This is Member Absalom. I will make, or maybe Mr. Ramirez, did you want to chime in before I make it?
Yes, because Mr. Liu needs to be asked whether or not he agrees with these conditions because that's what's going to be on the table, the ones that he'll agree to.
Mr. Liu, can you let us know if you will be able to comply with these conditions?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, and then I think for the sake of clarity, right, it is having an alcohol policy within the next 30 days. It is having all tips, training materials provided to us, by the next meeting, the next 30 days. And then it is being able to show up to all of our meetings for the next 6 months and provide us with a monthly report. And the understanding that if any of these are missed, or as well as anything else within the your license requirements are missed within the next 6 months, that will trigger an automatic revocation of your alcohol license.
Yes, sir.
All right. So did we get a second?
I think we haven't made a motion yet. I think we were waiting for Mr. Liu to agree to this first, which he has. Member Absalom, do you want to make that motion, or?
I think you said it so well, but why don't you go ahead? You had everything lined up there.
Okay. So Member Carr will make a motion to conditionally approve this license based on the conditions that we have agreed to with Mr. Liu, which were previously stated and should be in the record. Do I have a second on that?
Member Absalom will second the motion.
Before we vote, I want to make sure I captured everything. If you would indulge me, please. That an alcohol policy and tips training be provided within 1 month. Do you want 1 month from today, or do you want it the next Beverage Licensing Authority hearing?
Fair enough. I would say the next Beverage Licensing Authority meeting.
Okay. In person or appearance reporting for the next 6 months. And any of missed of these conditions or any violations for the requirements to hold a liquor license will trigger an automatic revocation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Roberto, did you have something to add?
Yes, two things. Number one, just like any other revocation, there would still have to be notice and an opportunity to be heard. So if there is an alleged violation, it would be still alleged until he was provided notice and an opportunity to be heard. That's number one. Number two, you are voting not as a provisional license. You're voting on the license with conditions.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, great. All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
All right, licensee approved with said conditions.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on in our agenda to agenda item number 10, public hearing and consideration of an application filed on February 28th, 2024 from OG Walnut Ferries LLC, doing business as Walnut Cafe, 3073 Walnut Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80301. Walnut Ferries LLC, 100% owner of OG Walnut Ferries LLC, with Ashley Parzik, registered manor, and 50% owner of Walnut Ferries LLC, and Ariel Cook, manager and 50% owner of Walnut Ferries LLC, with a premises business mailing address for a new hotel restaurant type liquor license.
All right, this is Brian Allard, and I represent the Walnut Cafes, item number 10 and 11. I'm having difficulty getting my video come up. It says it stopped, so hold on. You cannot start your video.
Let me see what we can do here.
Oh, there we go. Can you see us? All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you all. So we also have on the video Aaron Call of Edip's Petitioning that did the petitioning again for item number 10 and 11, but we'll go through each one individually unless the board wants to do something different. Would you like to hear an opening statement, or should we go ahead and jump into testimony?
Let's go ahead and go ahead, Kristen. We'll get you.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. So I'll need, and I'll do each of you individually. Ashley, let's go ahead and get you started. Ashley, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Ashley Parzak,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that the testimony you're about to give the Beverage Licensing Authority
that the testimony I'm about to give the Beveraging Licensing Authority
is true and correct.
is true and correct.
Thank you. And were you responsible for posting of the premises?
Yes.
Do you also swear or affirm that the premises was posted for the legal 10-day posting requirement?
I swear.
Thank you. Ariel, would you please raise your hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Ariel Cook,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that the testimony I am about to give the Beverage Licensing Authority
that the testimony that I'm about to give to the Beverage, what was it?
Licensing
Authority
is true and correct.
is true and correct.
Thank you.
We gotta just change our name to the liquor board. Did we get the addresses? Did I miss that? I'm so sorry.
I apologize. Ms. Parzak, may I get you to spell your last name and give us your address?
Yes, my last name is Parzych. And are you asking for my home address or the address of the?
You can give either.
My home address is 1920 Donovan Drive in Longmont, and 80501. And the address of the business is 3073 Walnut Street in Boulder, 80301.
Perfect. Ms. Cook, would you do as the same? State your last name, spell it.
Cook, Cooke, and 1012 Marmot Court, Longmont, Colorado, 80504. And the business address is 673 South Broadway, Boulder, Colorado, 80305.
Okay, now on to Aaron. Aaron, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Aaron McCullough,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that the testimony you're about to give the Beverage Licensing Authority
that the testimony I'm about to give to the Beverage Licensing Authority
is true and correct.
is true and correct.
Can I get you to spell your last name and give us your address, please?
My last name is McCullough, McCullough, and I live at 17334 East Twinberry Street in Parker, Colorado, 80134.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
And Kristen, since they are both the same type of license, just different locations, are we able to merge these two agenda items into one and then get a different explanation for each location since they're different layouts?
I'm not aware of any rules that would preclude us for that. I would have to read the other item into record, but I do defer to Mr. Ramirez.
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, so we would hear both agenda items, but individually approve each one. We would just do it as a testimony for each individual location and approve them separately.
Yes. Yeah, so you can take in all the information and just do it, vote on it separately.
Great.
Right.
So it's Mr. Allard, I believe. We'll hear them individually, but we'll have the next agenda item read into the record as well. But if you could keep any testimonies, the personal background, just to once, because it's the same ownership for each location, we would just hear differences in what you plan to do at each, especially with regards to layout and design and whatnot, if you're okay with proceeding with that.
Yes, that's fine. I think that'll be an efficient way for the BLA, and frankly, since both my clients are here, so yes, we can certainly do that. So Would we like to start with the OG then?
Real quick, since you're representing as counsel, are you fine with going the reading of the proceedings into the record?
Fine with waiving that? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, great. And is there any ex parte communication or conflict of interest from any of the board members for either agenda item? Member Califano, no for both.
Member Absalom for both.
Member Carr, no for both.
Member Roberts, no for both.
Okay, and for the record, I will need to read in that second application piece, if you please.
Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Sorry for jumping the gun there.
Nope, we're jumping all over the place today. So for the agenda item number 11 being heard simultaneously, public hearing and consideration of an application filed on February 28th, 2024 from SS Walnut Ferries LLC, doing business as Southside Walnut Cafe, 673 South Broadway, Boulder, Colorado, 80305. Walnut Ferries LLC, 100% owner of SS Walnut Ferries LLC, with Ashley Parzik, manager and 50% owner of Walnut Ferries LLC, and Ariel Cook, registered manager and 50% owner of Walnut Ferries LLC, with a premises business mailing address for a new hotel restaurant type liquor license.
Great, thank you, Kristen. And if there's anyone here in the participants that wishes to speak to either agenda item, if you could raise your hand. Not seeing any. All right, Mr. Allard, you may proceed for the first location for the first agenda item.
And I just want to briefly just touch on, for both locations, this is a hotel and liquor license. We've got Ariel Cook and Ash that are going to be the owners talking about these. They serve primarily breakfast and brunch into the lunch hours. My understanding is that what you'll hear from testimony of them today, not planning on doing anything too crazy like bottomless mimosas, more of just simple drinks and things along those lines. So I'll go ahead and start with testimony of Ash. We've already got your name and first and last name spelled into the record. So what is your current occupation?
Current occupation is half owner of the Walnut Cafe and half owner of the Southside Walnut Cafe.
Okay, and can you tell the authority a little bit about your education background?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in sociology with a specification toward criminal justice.
Okay.
From the University of Massachusetts in Amherst.
And can you tell the authority a little bit about your employment background?
Yeah, so prior to moving to Colorado and starting employment at Walnut Cafe as a barista, and up to server and up to manager and up to owner. I have a law enforcement background. I was a correctional officer for 4.5 years in Massachusetts. And then prior to that, I was doing elderly care. And prior to that, I was doing, I worked at a behavioral facility for children in Atlanta.
Can you please tell we've already gone over, but let's go ahead and establish for the authority, what is the address of this particular location that you're applying for?
The address is 3073 Walnut Street in Boulder, Colorado, 80301.
Okay. And can you tell us the authority a little bit about the business, how long it's been established, what kind of food you provide, and just a caveat, this is an open business, correct?
Yes, it is an open business and has been for 41 years as of this year. We serve breakfast and lunch. It's, I think many describe it as a staple in Boulder. Many, people would probably describe it as a really sweet place that they've had made a lot of memories at. And yeah, we're serving breakfast and lunch, and we're just trying to follow along and hear the requests of all of our customers that have been coming to see us for 41 years.
So along those lines, one of the needs and desires, can you please tell the authority about if your patrons have said anything specifically about this liquor license?
Yeah, so since posting it, a lot of people have been really excited, and some of the regular customers that we are closer to, we've already disclosed that we're in this process with, and I get weekly, if not daily, check-ins with them, and their excitement about it. Yeah, and all around, it's been really positive feedback. People are really excited to see where this goes.
Have you had personally any opposition?
No.
If the authority does grant your license, what kind of balance of food to alcohol sales do you expect?
It's pretty minimal for the alcohol sales. We're going to be more like 80% food sales, 20% alcohol sales. That's our guess right now. I can't imagine it being much different than that.
What are the hours and days of the week that this location is open?
We operate Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And how many employees do you have, part-time and full-time?
Part-time, we have, it varies a little bit, with the busy season coming up. So in the winter months, it could be 26 or 27 part-time employees and 2 or 3 full-time employees. And in the summertime, the part-time employees go up, but the full-time employees stay the same, and usually only goes up by 2 or 3 employees.
And does the OG location have a on-site manager?
Yes.
And who is that?
That's me. I am the on-site manager.
Okay. And how many days are you there?
I'm there 4 to 5 days on a regular week, and more than that when business needs.
Okay. And is there another on-site manager you will delegate that authority to when they're not there? What is your experience with alcohol sales, or have you done any training?
I have no experience in alcohol sales. Ariel and I are looking into all the training that we need to do, and we take it pretty seriously, and we're going to do all the training that we can. But as far as personal experience, I don't have any yet.
But have you started any training?
We've started looking at the classes, and we're signing up for them, I think, next week for the on-site manager training. And we're getting all of our servers. We will be getting all of our servers tip certified.
Yeah. Have you ever had a liquor license suspended or revoked?
No.
How are you planning to monitor your sales of service of alcohol at the restaurant?
As far as IDs go?
How are you going to track receipts?
Oh, track receipts. Yeah. So we use Toast POS, and they track our entire history. So anytime we need to look anything up, it could be individual receipts, it could be daily sales in individual categories, food, beverage, whatever. All of that is online and accessible, and that's where we plan on keeping our receipts.
And you went through the zoning process through the BLA, correct?
Yes.
Where are you going to serve your alcohol, or where are you going to store your alcohol in frozen or in a cold storage, and or if it needs to be just in a dry storage?
Yeah, so we have lockers that we plan to keep all alcohol locked and stored in, and then we'll also be purchasing a refrigerator that is locked for cold storage.
And who will have access to that?
Us and the on-site manager.
Okay. What about employees serving alcohol?
The manager on duty for the day will. Other employees will not.
So if a employee violates the liquor code, what would happen to that employee?
Termination.
And can you please tell the authority what you need to be checking for proper identification for an individual?
Yeah, so government issued IDs, driver's licenses, state issued ID cards, permanent resident cards, passports, things of that nature that are government issued.
And what are you going to be specifically looking for on those governmental issued IDs?
Yeah, so date of birth, making sure that they're 21 plus. Some indicators, like in Colorado, the vertical versus horizontal identifications, and yeah.
And the BLA heard we've heard on the BLA earlier about is the directionality the only indicator of is that the only indicator of a license that's valid or not?
Can you restate that question?
Are you only looking at whether or not the license is vertical versus horizontal, or what else are you looking for?
No, in addition to that, the date of birth on there as well, and validity of the ID. Yeah.
Okay. Who are the? We've already gone over this, but who are the owners of OG Walnut Ferries?
Myself and Ariel Cook.
And have you financially contributed to the business?
I have.
Okay. Anybody else?
Financially contribute?
Yes. There as well. All right. Do you believe you're of good moral character?
I do believe I'm of good.
And why is that?
Yeah, I have, a history of wanting to help people, wanting to help the community. Ariel and I are currently donating every year to Out Boulder County and other foundations such as the KRD Foundation, which gets kids on bicycles in the community. And I also believe that my law enforcement background shows my good moral character, especially when it comes to, liquor license, something as serious as a liquor license.
And do you believe you're financially responsible, and if so, why?
Yes, I'm also financially responsible. I bought my first house at 25 years old. I own a house here in Colorado. We bought 2 businesses together. And yeah, I think that goes to show my financial responsibility.
That's all the questions I have for Ash, and I can go on to Aaron unless the board would like me to pause for any questions specific for Ash now.
Let's go ahead and get both testimonies and then we'll have questions.
Okay. So, Aaron, you were employed to do a needs and desires petition, correct, for this OG location? You're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry. That is correct.
And can you just tell the BLA what firm you're with?
Yeah, so I'm the owner of Oedipus Petitioning. And yes, we were hired to go out and perform the petition survey of the designated area to determine the needs and desires for the application of OG Walnut Ferries LLC, doing business as Walnut Cafe.
Can you generally explain to the board how you conducted that survey?
Yeah, so I go out and try to get a large sample of the designated area. So for this location, I went to many different shopping centers. If you look at the map, it's very, there's a high density of businesses and restaurants in the mall right there. So I went to a lot of different businesses and to a few residential areas, as there weren't that many.
So how did you ensure that you got the biggest sample size?
So to ensure that I got the biggest sample size is just trying to go around the entire map that I have, marking areas off as I'm going and getting areas in all of the different parts on the map to try to get the best sample, and going back to businesses multiple times if I wasn't able to get in touch with the manager or owner, trying 2 or 3 different times to try to get in touch with them. And same with the residential area, going back to houses multiple times to try to get in contact with residents living there.
We'll go into more detail in the next application, but this one had can you go into the mix of business versus residents and why there is a higher density of businesses in this particular petition packet for OG?
Yeah, I would just say that this area is a little bit different than most designated areas that I'm given, just as it does have a much higher concentration of businesses and a very low concentration of residential dwellings, specifically accessible residences. Some of the apartment complex are locked or can't get in contact with any of the people who live there because the doors to the apartments are inside of the building. But as far as this area, it is just a very high density of businesses.
And in your petitioning packet, there was a number of other liquor licenses that were also hotel restaurant. Did you get any of their approval of the liquor license?
Yeah, so this City of Boulder gives me the list. This one had, I believe it was 25 hotel restaurant liquor license holders. I went to all of them. Even though I went back to them a couple times, there were some of them that were closed when I went, and then other ones where I was never able to get in touch with a manager or an owner. Sometimes management doesn't want to sign because the owner is not there. But as far as the ones that I did get in contact with, I received 14 signatures in favor from other businesses in the area that have hotel restaurant liquor licenses.
Did you have any opposition on this particular location?
I did not. Nope.
And did you visit any properties with no soliciting or private property listed on it?
There was one area that had some signs up for no soliciting for an apartment complex. Other than that, all of the houses were pretty much okay to go to as far as that.
Did you review the hotel and liquor licenses that were provided by the city or by the Boulder Liquor or the Beverage Licensing Authority?
Yes, the list that they sent me, yes, I reviewed that.
How many brunch or how many liquor licenses did you view were going to be serving alcohol within kind of the general time periods of this location?
So out of the 25 hotel and restaurant licenses that were on the sheet, there were generally 10 of them that were serving breakfast. And 6 of those that were not hotels.
And can you just give did you get any specific responses you'd like to share to the Beverage and License Authority of approval or anything along those lines?
Just as far as my results?
As far as, did you hear anybody specific make any comments specific of that this, that they're in favor or reasons why they were in favor?
Well, there are a lot of people who are excited for this location, both locations, but this location to get alcohol because it has been around for so long. It is something that what I found was that a lot of people in the area are very excited about this restaurant in general. They like it a lot, and having some alcohol on the menu is something that a lot of people did give me positive feedback about.
And you said you got 100% of the needs and desires in favor. Is that typical of other petitions you've done before?
Yeah, from my experience, these results can be typical for a hotel restaurant liquor license. Most people that I find they are okay with a restaurant getting a hotel restaurant liquor license, especially one that has been around for a long time. And if someone says that they don't want to sign one of my petitions, I do make a big point to ask them if they would like to sign in opposition. Sometimes people don't realize that that's part of what they can do. So I do make a big point to ask them that. And for this job, no one opposed strongly enough to want to sign in opposition.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have for this particular location. I can move on to the testimony for the other locations if and then do closing remarks for both locations if the authority is okay with that.
I think we'd want to ask questions real quick regarding this location.
Of course.
I don't personally have any. This is a good lesson for the board to know that when we're actually setting the boundaries to look at residential population density versus business population density, which is something that I know I personally, that one went over my head and it didn't consider. But are there any other questions for Aaron outside of the board? All right, not seeing any. Yeah, if you want to move on to the next location.
Okay, so this location applying for the same hotel and hotel and restaurant liquor license. Can you please state your name for the record and the location of the business that you're applying for?
Ariel Cook, and it's the Southside Walnut Cafe, 673 South Broadway, Boulder, Colorado, 80305.
All right. What is your position at that location?
I am an owner manager.
Okay. And if you could please, could you tell the authority a little bit about your education background?
I went to Naropa University in Boulder, and I studied early childhood education and visual arts.
And do you have a degree? Did you get a degree?
I did not get my degree. I ended up working in a restaurant, and the money was so good, it was hard for me to leave. So, and it was actually at the Walnut. So,
well, good. And can you tell the authority a little bit about your employment background?
I started, actually, my first job was at a restaurant in Pennsylvania, and I worked there for quite a few years, as well as working with people with disabilities, like mostly autistic humans, and I did that for years, and then went to school and was working at the Walnut Cafe. So yeah, for about 16, I guess it's 17 years now, 2 years in ownership. So
since you've been in the restaurant industry, have you served alcohol before?
Yes, I have.
So you have experience with checking IDs and things along those lines?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So can you tell the board, I know we've already talked a little bit about the OG location, but can you talk a little bit more particularly about the Southside Walnut location, what kind of foods and drinks it provides, how long it's been in business, so on and so forth?
Yeah, the Southside's been in business for 19 years. We do breakfast and lunch. We've got a coffee bar, and yeah, we serve a lot of families in that area who all live around there and walk there, and yeah, it's a pretty awesome spot.
Okay, can you tell the board what you think the estimated food versus alcohol will be at that location?
We think about 80-20, again, mostly food. That's our main deal.
And I think I didn't get to ask this question, but what kind of generally drinks do you guys plan on doing at these locations?
Mimosas are going to be our main deal, and then maybe Bloody Marys, but we don't really plan on having a large list of drinks.
Okay. And what are the hours of the Southside location?
Monday through Friday, 7 to 2, and Saturday and Sunday, 7 to 3.
And how many employees, and part-time and full-time, does the Southside location have?
We usually have 2 full-time and about 27 to 30 part-time.
And is there an on-site manager at the Southside location?
Yes.
And who is that?
That's myself.
Okay. And when are you on site?
I am there about 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week.
Okay. And is there another on-site manager there that you?
We have another manager, yeah, or Ash is there.
Whenever you are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already covered you have experience in serving alcohol. Was it in Colorado?
No, it was in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Have you done any other training?
I have not, but we are signed up for the training, the state training, and I'm also going to take the tips class just so I'm extra bulked up.
And do you plan on having your employees take tip training as well?
Yes, everyone.
Have you ever had a liquor license suspended or revoked?
No.
Right. And so in this location, how are you going to keep receipts of alcohol sales in this particular location?
Again, we have that same toast that we use, and it'll all be online that we can access.
And where are you going to store? Again, did you go through the zoning requirements with this location through
Yes.
the BLA?
Yes, we did.
Did you have indication of where you're going to be storing the alcohol in that zoning?
Yes, we're gonna have it stored in the back office or in a locked cooler that we have in the back.
And who's going to have access to that?
Myself, Ash, and any leaders or managers who are trained.
And what are going to be the consequences if an employee violates the liquor code?
They'll be terminated.
Can you please tell the authority what the proper forms of identification are?
Yes, you can have a government issued state ID, identification card, or driver's license, a passport, military ID, or a consular's ID.
And what are you looking for on those IDs?
You're looking at their birth date to make sure that they are over 21.
Does Colorado have anything in particular to indicate that somebody may be under 21?
The ID is turned the other direction.
Okay. And is that the only indication you should be looking at?
No, also their date of birth.
And who are the owners of the Southside Walnut Cafe?
Myself and Ash.
Okay. And have you financially contributed to that?
Yes.
Who else has financially contributed?
Ash, of course.
Okay. Can you please tell the authority if you are in good moral character, and if so, why?
Yes, I think I am. I have been in the community and doing community work and service for most of my life. I've worked with people with disabilities for a long time, and donate a lot and give back to the community. And I'm also raising a teenager. So.
Can you tell the authority if you believe that you're financially responsible, and if so, why?
Yes, I think I'm financially responsible. I own my own home. I'm raising a teenager. We've bought 2 businesses together. And before that, I was helping do the finances for 10 years for the restaurants.
All right, that's all the questions I have for Ariel, and I can jump into Aaron if the board is okay with that.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. All right, Aaron. So in this, you were also retained to do a needs and desire position for the Southside location, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And how did you do this survey?
So this one, I was given the map. I made sure to go to different neighborhoods within the designated area. There were a few small little shopping areas, the main one being where Southside Walnut Cafe is located. So getting all of those businesses. And then there were only, I think, 2 small areas with businesses. So this one did have a large demographic of residential areas. So I was able to go to different neighborhoods within the designated area to try and get signatures from the different demographics in that area. Just going door to door and telling people what it's about and getting signatures.
Did you have any specific responses that you'd like to share on this location as well from individuals?
So this one I had a lot of signatures in favor, and I did have 1 signature in opposition. The gentleman just wrote down not necessary. So he doesn't believe that it's needed in this area, but he didn't have any specific comments. He wasn't upset. He was a very nice guy. He just signed in opposition, which happens sometimes. So other than that, though, no, there's a lot of support.
And how did you make sure you got the largest sample size for this location?
Just keeping track on my map and marking off the streets that I had worked, and then going to a different part of the map to see what I could get, in different areas. So just making sure that I'm trying to go to different parts of the map and areas to get my signatures.
And did you get, well, first of all, are there any other hotel and liquor licenses held in this general location that they provided?
Yeah, so there were, like I said, there weren't a lot of businesses in this area. So there were only 3 in this area with hotel, restaurant, liquor licenses. I made contact with 2 of them and they did sign in favor. And the one that I wasn't able to get in contact with was Southern Sun Pub and Brewery, which I went back to 2 or 3 different times, and I talked to the manager twice, but he did not want to sign. He wanted the owner to sign, but the owner was not available. He wasn't there either time that I went.
do you know by chance those other hotel and liquor licenses, were they, will they be serving, do they serve brunch and breakfast as well?
So they open at 11 a.m. or later, and they close at 9 p.m. or later. So it's not a huge conflict with those hours.
And so this particular location, what was the percentage of in favor?
So based on the needs and desires petition that I did, I got 99.26% of those that participated were in favor of issuance, and 0.74 were against issuance, with that one that I had against.
Okay, and kind of a similar question to the other liquor license, but is this typical of the type of petitioning that you do to getting these kind of responses?
Yeah, for the results that I typically get, this was a pretty normal petition. Like I said with the last one, since this restaurant has been around for a really long time, so many people that were signing the petition knew of this restaurant. A lot of those people knew that they were applying for the liquor license, and they were excited to sign the petition because they're excited to go back to the restaurant and maybe have a drink there with their brunch.
All right, that's all the questions I've got for you.
Thank you.
Does the authority have any questions, or would you like to do concluding remarks on both locations?
Are there any questions from the board members for either the applicants or the petitioner?
This is member Absalom, and I didn't necessarily have a question, but more of a comment to the applicants. I think anyone that's been in this community can all agree that the walnut is a staple. And we really, when you go into this world of alcohol service, love to see you do it responsibly. So my suggestion would be to get with Nathan Dewey in the RAR. I'm looking at your alcohol policy. It does have some things where I would say you can expound on those things. Just kind of as you dive into this, kind of listening to some of your testimony about not working with alcohol. This community, we take a lot of responsibility and serving responsible, having responsible alcohol policy and service. So just doing everything you can in that sense and getting with Nathan Dewey would be my suggestion, but I don't have any other questions.
Great, thank you for that input. Are there any other questions from the board members? Not seeing any. Mr. Allard, did you want to close with anything?
I just generally want to just for both locations, we had one location was a 99% in favor, the other was 100%. I wanted to make sure that the authority knew that there was kind of a different mix for both locations, just be based specifically on the maps that were provided, but again, had a very good in favor location. Both applicants passed their background checks and are, are in good moral character. I have had discussions with them, and I know that they are in favor and for making sure that they're going to be in compliance with the liquor laws, and just really hope that we can make sure that they get these liquor license and continue as a staple in the community.
Great, thank you for that. At this point, we will close for deliberation with consideration for the first location, which is 3073 Walnut Street, Colorado 80301. Any discussion, motion?
I would have liked to see the policy, but I understand that they are in the middle of that, but sometimes I wonder why that's not provided when requesting something. But overall, I live in South Boulder. I think it's going to be a great addition to the community.
There was
Sorry,
a policy.
real quick. We are addressing the 3073 Walnut Street, not the South Boulder location right now. So we're just assessing that first license. I do believe they did include a policy in the hearing packet. Mr. Absalom addressed kind of some of the expansion points that they could do on that. But yeah, I believe it was in the packet material.
Why did I
Page 149.
thought I heard it and I thought I heard them say they were writing it. Oh,
So it was in the packet material for the first location that we're discussing right now.
Got it.
Yeah, it was one page. And yeah, to my point to the applicants was that they could certainly add to it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I know that RAR can help them with that. And just when you take your first foray into alcohol service and being such a staple in our community for breakfast, I want to see them really do it with the responsibility that they need to. And yeah, I don't see it actually listed, but again, if we're using the same idea, if that's the policy for both locations, they can expound on it.
All right. Given that, any other discussion? If not, Member Califano would make a motion to approve the license at 3073 Walnut Street.
Member Absalom would second.
All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Great. License approved for that location. Second location to be in consideration of is the 673 South Broadway, Boulder, Colorado 80305. Is there any discussion consideration?
Member Carr would make a motion to approve this license.
Member Absalom would second.
All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
For Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Awesome. Both locations approved for a new hotel restaurant liquor license.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on into the agenda is agenda item number 12, matters from the Deputy City Attorney.
No items from the Deputy City Attorney. Thank you, everyone.
I did have a quick question for Roberto.
Sure.
Going back into what we decided on the penalty and the conditions rather for the renewal, it's not going to be for, I'm sorry, for Chicken on the Hill. It's not going to
Right.
be an automatic revocation. It's still going to be a show cause.
Correct. If there is an allegation, because simply because somebody alleges that, for example, they sold to a minor or they didn't do X, it's still an allegation until you make a finding of fact that X occurred and you conclude that there was a violation. Then at that point you can pull that license that they have.
Yeah, just for the record, I wish I would have worded it differently in terms of an automatic revocation and just say, it's going to be a serious consideration for revocation.
Well, no, I mean, that was fine. What the BLA did was absolutely fine, because if you find that there is a violation, then you can revoke, but you need to have notice and an opportunity to be heard before you make that finding.
Just wanted to emphasize the seriousness of the situation.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And Roberto, in a situation like we had with the previous show cause hearing last month, we can even do something like an emergency closure for health and safety if we, given that this applicant has a previous history and everything else, if we're that concerned, correct?
Yes.
Does that need
However,
to be brought forth by the city attorney?
I'm sorry?
Does that need to be brought forth by the city prosecutor, rather?
Yeah, so that would be through Officer Rec and through the prosecution team. So we would not necessarily know about it until they put us on notice that there is a situation which affects the safety and welfare of the community.
Thanks.
Sure.
But I will advocate for Officer Erect and that she's on top of it. So
Absolutely.
Okay, continuing on, agenda item 13, matters from the licensing clerk. Neighborhood boundary setting for applications for the May 15th, 2024 Beverage Licensing Authority hearing. First is Zozen Inc. doing business as Zo Mama for a new beer and wine type liquor license at 919 Pearl Street, Boulder, Colorado 80302. Staff pulled suggested boundaries from the similar liquor license of Trident Booksellers, which is at 938 to 940 Pearl Street in Boulder. Would you like to hear those suggested boundaries?
please.
North is Maxwell Extended, south Marine Street, east 17th Street, and west 4th Street.
I feel like Marine's a little close, but I could go either way. How's the rest of the board feel?
Yeah, if you go farther, how far is taking all the way to college, Matt?
I might just do university. And
Okay.
also on the west side, I feel like we could do city limits.
I agree with city limits on the west side for sure.
All right, so Maxwell on the north, city limits on the west, university. And this is my motion, university on the south side. What was the east
17th Street.
and 17th on the east?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Member Absalom will second.
All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Kristen, I feel like that location had a license.
Not for quite some time.
Who's next to them?
Who's next to them?
I think it's
I'm good, but I'm
Chimera.
not that good.
No, this looks like a different location.
Yeah, Zomama already has an existing license within the city. This is an additional location. This will be secondary.
Yeah, so this is like a block past the J's, Matt. It's farther down a little bit.
Where's the other license?
It's at their location, but then this is a new location. They're going down a block away.
They're going down a couple blocks.
Okay, got it.
Yep. All right, and the next for neighborhood boundary settings is Scratch Labs Cafe LLC, doing business as Scratch Labs Cafe for a new hotel restaurant type liquor license at 1600 Pearl Street, Suite 300, Boulder, Colorado 80302. Staff suggested boundaries were based on the most recent, which was in the area, same license type, Main Shack at 2010 16th Street, Unit 110, Boulder, Colorado 80302. Would you care to hear the staff suggestions?
Please.
North is Elder Avenue. South, Pennsylvania Avenue. East, 26th Street. And West, 6th Street.
I'm good with that. Make a motion to accept those boundaries.
Member Califano would second. All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Perfect. There are no administrative processing of liquor license transfers for this month, nor are there any brewery, winery, or distillery requests for local licensing authority input for application for Colorado sales room. The special event liquor permit list was provided as a part of the packet, as well as the liquor license renewals list sent for the most recent round of renewals. A draft of an agenda for the Beverage Licensing Authority retreat in May was provided. If you have any items that you would like to see on that, add change to that, We would, welcome anything like that. If we could just kind of get that no later than May. Do I have the date up? I apologize. I'm sorry, if we can get those to staff by Monday, April 29th. Any changes or alternate suggestions?
Great, and just confirming we're meeting at the 1136 Alpine Avenue address, correct?
Yes, so there'll be all sorts of fun stuff coming for that, yes.
Perfect.
Are you talking food?
We know you like your food, so yes, there will be a food component available to you.
I don't believe Member Roberts or Member Carr have had the opportunity to actually have an in-person hearing to this point. So
Oh, yeah.
yes, they spoil us a bit. I think you'll see. It's very impressive. City staff is very good to you.
I was there at the retreat last year.
Yeah, we were there last year. I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, okay.
Oh, you have the
retreat last year.
Gotcha, yeah.
yeah.
It'll be similar. Do you have anything for staff?
I just had a quick question because I had a couple. This is legitimately asking for a friend, being that I do not have a liquor license in my name. It was regarding the email I sent you, Kristen, about the to-go alcohol. And this is the individual does have that to-go license, but they weren't sure if they served someone alcohol and they didn't finish it. And it made me get to thinking about like recorking wine and things of that nature. Are they able to, if they don't finish their drink, give it in a to-go cup sealed with all the proper wording and everything and give it to them to go?
If the licensee has the required takeout permit issued from the state, I could find nothing that was contrary to either whether or not it was a half-finished drink put in that to go or they ordered it to go. I could not find anything contrary as to that in state law. And we don't have any local surrounding that.
Good to know. Thank you. They kind of stopped doing that because they thought that they were in violation, but it seems that they're not. So
yeah. I could not find anything contrary to that. It did not specify. So the law was silent.
great. I don't have anything. Does any of the other board members?
Are we down to the last agenda item here, 14? We've moved on.
We are matters from the chair and members of the authority.
No, the only thing I had is I didn't realize Member Carr was from New Jersey. What part of New Jersey are you from?
South Jersey, outside of Philly.
So it's good 'cause I represent North Jersey. I didn't want us to get like you're referencing bars in South Jersey. I went to school in Trenton, so I'm glad that we represent different parts of New Jersey. It's important.
Well, I went to school in North Jersey, so
did you go to Rutgers?
No, Fairleigh Dickinson in Morris County.
I represent College of New Jersey. So
nice, love that.
I have nothing. I would make a motion to adjourn other than that. Member Absalom.
Member California would second, or Member Carr can second whoever.
Who's
All
my
right,
second?
I'll give it to Member Carr. All right.
Yeah. Do I have to, I said sorry. I'll repeat it. Yes, Member Carr will second that motion.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
We are adjourned at 5:36 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys, have a great
you.
day.